In today's world of market volatility and uncertainty, your retirement plans need to be front and center. With ever-changing tax laws, healthcare worries, and an unpredictable stock market, don't overlook the vulnerability in your retirement planning. Protecting your family and estate will be difficult with shifting policies in Washington. It's more important than ever to keep an eye on retirement.
Hi, and welcome into Eye on Retirement, the weekly show that keeps you in the know about all things retirement. I'm your host and financial advisor, Rick Everett, and if you're joining us for the first time, welcome in. If you're one of our many regular viewers, welcome back. We've got the full complement of panelists along with us on this episode of Eye on Retirement, to include partner and financial advisor Jonathon McCoy with Market Advisory Group, CPA Pat Dougherty with Market Tax Services, Medicare advisor Cory Siebert with Market Medicare Advisors, and from Eidelman Law Firm, our estate planning attorneys, Devin, Seward. Panel, thank you for being here with us in this show. Jonathon, you recently met with Jim and Jane, who've stuck with the advisor Jane's dad used before he passed away nearly 10 years ago. And their advisor can be difficult to get a hold of and has all of their accounts spread out between 5 different companies, which has been difficult for them to keep track of.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And we find this quite a bit, that over time, especially if you've been working with a financial advisor for sometimes several years, as they're adjusting strategies, moving this money this way and that a lot of folks can wind up with a sort of a confusing situation as far as where is your money actually, how much or how little risk is on different pots of money is a common question. But Jim in this case actually came to us primarily with questions about Medicare. He intended to meet with one of our Medicare advisors. I sat down with them first to discuss what their current financial advisor had done in terms of planning for what the expenses of Medicare and those healthcare costs are going to be throughout retirement. And we quickly realized that as the conversation unfolded, that Jim had other underlying concerns, especially with some of the volatility in the market recently, some of the losses that they had taken, that maybe there wasn't enough attention being paid to what was happening with their money, and the fact that they had tried over close to about 6 months to get a hold of their financial advisor and had yet to successfully set up a meeting with him, that they needed to start looking for a bit of a more holistic strategy in terms of retirement, going from that accumulation phase of their financial life to the distribution phase of their financial life. And as I mentioned, it all started with a Medicare conversation, but as many of these situations do, evolved into much more than that.
Do you find, Jonathon, a lot of people, when initially sitting down to look at retirement and retirement planning, that the actual Medicare planning is something that isn't even registering with them on a first go through?
Normally that planning doesn't even exist, and a lot of folks are starting to respond to things like postcards in the mail. I think a lot of folks are familiar with that. The bombardment of emails that you get. Who knows how your name ended up on some list somewhere, but when you get to within about a year of turning age 65, you're going to get flooded, and it can be incredibly overwhelming and confusing. So that's a common starting point for questions for people that are around retirement age is, what is Medicare? Is it Social Security? Is it a tax? Is it a premium that I've got to pay? How much is it going to cost? And some people believe that Medicare is free, which is something that we have to discuss to understand what actually those costs are that go along with it. And that's when we get Cory and his team with Market Medicare Advisors involved, usually early on in the process, because if we don't have that foundation of understanding for what your health insurance is going to cost, it makes it that much more difficult for us as financial advisors to plan around what your lifestyle is going to require from an income standpoint.
Cory, Jonathon indicated that this couple's primary concern, at least coming into Market Advisory Group, revolved around Medicare. How does Market Medicare Advisors work together with Market Advisory Group's financial advisors as far as benefiting their clients?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's a lot of new information that people are going to have to start to digest whenever we start the Medicare discussion. And in Jim's case specifically, with his previous financial advisor, Jim, being over the age of 65, had questions about Medicare. And he kept being told by his advisor that it's okay, you're still working, we don't have to worry about Medicare right now.
Now, let me clarify. You're talking about his former financial advisor.
Correct.
Okay.
His former financial advisor just kept telling him, Jim, don't worry about this. We're still a ways from Medicare age. We don't need to talk about this right now. But that didn't stop Jim's questions. He still has questions about Medicare. So The biggest and most important thing that we are able to do at Market Medicare Advisors is set up the timeline for when people need to be having these Medicare conversations. Because absolutely, Jim was still working past the age of 65, and he did not need Medicare at that exact moment, but he needed it within a year. And for me to be able to sit down with Jim and lay out a timeline as to when we need to have certain things done, you saw it. You saw the stress just drop off of his face, and it was very beneficial for him. Uh, and turn with the financial advisor to know what kind of money that he's going to be needing for his health insurance.
Now, let me take the scenario a step further. For people who already have Medicare coverage, can Market Medicare Advisors leverage the team approach to help people understand the lifelong financial impacts of their medical costs?
Yeah, absolutely. And like we're even seeing in Congress right now, we are seeing a lot of Medicare being a very hot topic that's constantly talked about. And last year, there was a lot of talk about insulins or diabetic medications and how they're going to be covered under Medicare. And if you were taking an insulin in 2022 to 2023 and you were on Medicare, but you didn't review your plan, I'm willing to guarantee that there are some cost-saving opportunities. Medicare is ever-evolving, and it is very important to stay in the know as to what's happening with Medicare.
Jonathan, would it be safe to assume, like I've had happen around the conference table with my clients, with you and your clients, do you often find that with Medicare not being set up properly or tax planning being virtually non-existent or at best not good,
Right.
no estate plan in place, do you find that a lot of times when you start visiting with a prospective client, that if one of these areas is out of whack or has been advised poorly, most generally there's other areas that need attention too?
Yeah, in almost every circumstance, there's these missing pieces, and we've talked about in previous episodes, time and time again, some of the issues that people don't know the right questions to be asking. And Jim's case is the perfect example of someone that he was so primarily focused on Medicare and the health insurance, because that's part of the reason he had continued working in the first place, is so that he could get his wife through until Medicare age. And he kept asking these questions because he saw that as sort of his bridge or the open door to retirement, as he needed to be able to understand those costs himself. And ultimately, in his mindset, it was something that was such a big missing piece in their financial plan that that his financial advisor was unwilling to discuss with him, that he needed to start seeking outside advice. And when he sat down with me for the first time, that's the first thing that we dug into. We brought our Medicare team into the conference room to talk about, if you're going to need, say, $8,000 to $10,000 a year, for example, to cover those Medicare costs, we need to be planning around that. And where is that money going to be coming from? Is it going to be coming from cash and savings and retirement accounts? Is it going to be coming from cash and savings at the bank? Is it going to be coming from some sort of health savings account? What assets do you have available to help cover those costs? Just like a mortgage payment, just like putting gas in the car. You need to know where that money is going to be coming from and how much is it going to cost to access those funds. Those were the downstream questions that Jim ultimately did not know how to ask or what to ask, but it all started with, he just needed to know what was the cost, what was the plan, before he could move forward and feeling comfortable in retiring. And once we got through that part of the conversation, we realized that probably within 6 months to a year, Jim was going to feel comfortable retiring, but it was a point that he couldn't get to without having that conversation.
You may be out there and perhaps you have a financial advisor. You may even have a CPA that helps you with tax planning. You possibly have an estate attorney, even somebody you've talked to about Medicare that's trained in the ins and outs of Medicare. But do they all sit around the same table with you present and help devise a plan that's going to be effective for your retirement? If not, you're missing the benefit of an entire team working together for you, which is exactly what we do at Market Advisory Group, the holistic approach to retirement planning. If you'd like to set up a complimentary, no-obligation consultation, operators are standing by right now to take your call at 316-252-8707. Again, 316-252-8707. And be sure and check out our website at ionretirement.com. We'll be back with more of the show right after this.
When people work with Market Advisor Group, they get a feel of sense of family. There's a lot of relationships that are made and going on in this conference room, and we really take a lot of pride in that and a lot of satisfaction in that.
Every client we work with, we make a custom-made plan to fit them and help reach their goals in life. Another thing that makes us unique is we want to meet regularly with our clients and have reviews.
Market Advisory Group, we have a process, and the process we take people through is first to understand what they have, understand who they are, and then we put together an income plan for them and show them how they can look forward to retirement and not look, though retirement is going to be a stressful time. It needs to be a stress-free time.
A few unique features of working with Market Advisor Group is holistic in-house financial consultants. We've got an in-house CPA, Joshua, an in-house estate planning attorney, Gerald, an in-house Medicare advisor, Bill. We rely on all of those professionals for, again, additional service within our consultative process, making sure that we've got the advice and the expertise behind the recommendations that we make.
You know, as an advisor, I'm not there to sell them one way or the other. I'm there to educate them, to let them know what their choices are. Then I try to help them make the right choice where they can save money and feel confident in their decision.
Absolutely the best part of my job is getting a stack of paperwork from somebody and they don't know what to do, and then I can turn around and give them back a tax return, but also to be able to explain what they can do next year that will give them a better answer than what they had this year.
When we've got clients that are calling and they need to help out a child or need to help out a grandchild or need to help themselves out and they're in a situation they didn't expect to be in, I really relish the opportunity to help them through that, help them make the educated decisions in somewhat stressful situations, because a lot of folks don't have that type of counsel.
We meet with so many people one-on-one in this office that don't ever end up becoming a customer or doing business with us, and that's okay. But when they leave our office, we know that we've helped them either get some answers to some of the questions they had or get some clarity on maybe their own path.
But one of the things that we hear all the time is, I wish I would have met you guys 10 years ago, because how much further could I be down the road? Well, Johnny Appleseed said, you know, when's the best time to plant a tree? 10 years ago. When's the second best time? Today. And so if we can help people today going forward, that just brings an incredible amount of comfort and excitement for us to come to work every day.
Hi, and welcome back into the show. We're visiting in this edition of Eye on Retirement about Jim and Jane, who first made contact with us over Medicare questions. But after spending some time with them, we were able to discover that there was a lot more help that they needed in addition to just their Medicare questions. For Jim and Jane, they had a simple estate in terms of the complexity of their assets. However, the team at Market Advisory Group was able to identify some loose ends that could have meant real problems for their beneficiaries down the road. Devin, can you tell us more about the problems that they perhaps hadn't even thought of?
Sure, yeah. Like you said, they had a simple estate. They only owned a home, their residential property. They only owned their financial accounts. Some were non-retirement and some were retirement. But yeah, we had to figure out how to transfer those assets the way they wanted to. And their estate is since it's so simple, it's you know, very general. It applies to a lot more people out there than just Jim and Jane. And so a lot of people I meet with have homes and these financial accounts, and they're not sure what to do with them. A lot of people don't realize that their home is owned 1/2 interest in each spouse. And so when one of the spouses pass away, you know, in Jim and Jane's case, they only had a will governing their transference. And so you're going to have to probate that 1/2 interest of your spouse and for, you know, the surviving spouse to own the home 100%. And so a lot of people don't realize that. They think, oh, we own the home jointly, therefore when one of us dies, the other automatically owns the full house. And that's just simply not the case a lot of the times. And so I had to work with them on that to make sure we filed a correction. There's a lot of ways, different ways you can do that. You can file different deeds to make it automatically pass between them. You can also put the home in a trust, and then it's very easy to manage it that way. So there's a lot of different ways to manage that home and make sure it goes between the spouses and then to the children. Because a lot of people, they want that pattern to be that specific way. And so for Jim and Jane, I helped them with their home, and then their financial accounts. We took a look at them. Most financial accounts, the easiest way to transfer those are to list beneficiaries directly on the accounts and have a primary listed that way, and then a contingent. So you'll list the spouse as the primary, and then the kids as the contingent beneficiaries. And, looking at their accounts, we noticed, oh, they didn't even have a listed beneficiary on one of their accounts. And so if that's the case, if no one's listed, that account is going to go back to their estate, and it's going to need to be probated through the will. And so that was something that we helped them avoid. And that can turn into a mess. I mean, a lot of people don't realize that that's the kind of situation you can get yourself into. And so, I've dealt with that time and time again where I have to help people out with that. Those were their main problems, their common issues, and so we helped them take care of that.
So Devin, when we look at the complete retirement planning picture, okay, you've got the wealth management, which people are most generally eager to do. They want to know where they're standing financially. The tax planning, because that has the potential of saving people a lot of money. The Medicare, because people are concerned about how their medical needs are going to be met after they terminate from private insurance. But with the estate planning, how does a first consultation usually go with Eidelman Law Firm when people come in and want to visit you? Just a consultation, just to see where they're at with things.
Right. So we're not your typical law firm. I mean, your typical private practice law firm, they're going to bill you for every interaction, every exchange. They'll pick up the phone and talk to you for 10 minutes. They'll send you an invoice for a bill. They'll meet with you for an hour. You'll get a full bill for their hourly rate. We don't do that with our firm. All of our consultations and meetings are for free, no charge. We only bill you for the actual work that we do for you. And so, I mean, that's typically how it goes. I mean, the clients, they can either meet with us individually or they can meet with any of our advisors, and we'll often get pulled into meetings if they have a specific legal question. And so, I mean, more often than not, I'll get pulled into the conference room and come meet in and just answer a one-off question. And so, there's a lot of different variations of how we meet with people and what we do for them.
Jonathon McCoy with Market Advisory Group. I know I find, and I'm sure you find as a financial advisor, when you're sitting around the table with a client on a first meeting, and our first meeting is primarily just to get to know people.
That's right.
There's no sales trying to be made or anything like that. We have to understand the player before we can even begin to look at a program. But I often get the question when I say, well, let's reconvene next week. And this question comes up, well, how much is that meeting going to cost me?
Right. Almost every time. And that's the concern, right? The big pink elephant in the room always is, how much is this going to cost? As Devin was referring to, our consultation process is 100% complimentary for everyone. It doesn't matter how much or how little funds you have to invest. It doesn't matter how complex or simple your estate may be. Our process is built on the thousands of households of experience that we've worked with that have taught us the right questions to be asking those questions that people don't know to ask up front. We bring those questions and concerns to the table. And if we ask something like, have you set up an estate plan? It's a very wide, broad question to sort of open that conversation. Most people don't know what an estate plan is at the first point. But beyond that, it can open up questions like, yeah, we have a will, but we don't know, if we need to set up a trust. Our dad had a trust. We don't know if that's going to be right or wrong for us. And then we know those questions, those additional questions to ask, both through the real world experience that we've had with folks and also additional training that we've gone through as financial advisors, even though we're not necessarily the estate planning experts. That's why we have Devin and his team available. We know those prodding questions to get to the point to understand what pieces are missing. Power of attorney documents are something that that we ended up having to discuss with Jim and Jane in this circumstance. They didn't even know they needed it. But if one of them had been laid up in the hospital or incapacitated for any time, it was going to be a mess and a struggle and pulling teeth for Jim or Jane to be able to make medical or financial decisions on each other's behalf. And had we not asked these questions around what have you done along the lines of estate planning, that conversation never would have been had, and it's a conversation they never had with their existing advisor to begin with.
Do you have a whole team looking out for your best interest? If not, why wouldn't you have? There's a lot that goes on in planning for an effective retirement, from the financial aspects to tax planning, estate planning, and Medicare advising. At Market Advisory Group, we do just that, but we do it all under one roof for your convenience, bringing the entities together to get a complete look at your retirement plan. If you'd like to set up a complimentary no-obligation consultation, operators are standing by right now to take your call at 316-252-8707. And be sure and check out our website at ionretirement.com. We'll be back with the final segment of this show, and we'll do that right after this.
How confident are you in your current financial plan? Do you know with certainty how the recent market volatility will affect your future hopes and dreams? How much are you paying in taxes? And how much are you losing to unnecessary high fees? You didn't work to save this money so that you could spend your time worried in retirement. Now is the time to take charge of your finances so you can feel confident about your future. Call in during the next 30 minutes of today's show only to set up an absolutely complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review that will result in your own customized written plan. This is a $999 value that we're giving away complimentary to the first 10 people who respond. We'll start with a full-blown analysis of what you already have, by running a report to untangle how much you are currently paying in fees, how you're allocated for risk, and what it's costing to work with your current advisor. Next, we'll identify your goals. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Where do you want to go, and who do you hope to go there with? Is your current financial plan set up to get you there without mishap? Let's design a roadmap to create a financial plan you can follow with confidence. Get the piece that so many people are missing from their retirement. Find out how having a written plan can make a difference to your retirement dreams. Call now to schedule your complimentary, no-obligation, full-blown financial review today.
Welcome back into the final segment of this edition of Ion Retirement, where we've been talking about Jim and Jane, who originally came to talk about Medicare issues with Market Advisory Group and quickly realized that there was a Pandora's box of financial issues that could be lying right in front of them. Now, their previous advisor was licensed only to talk with them about their investments, and that left them exposed to many risks that they hadn't thought about prior to meeting with the Market Advisory Group team. Jonathan?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And again, we mentioned in the last segment sort of this process of questions that we have for folks when we're meeting with them for the first time. Ultimately, we want to get to know who they are as people, what is the lifestyle that they want to be living, and address those primary 5 to 10 questions they may have that are not getting answered by the current financial professionals, whether it's a tax advisor, a Medicare agent, even if they have an estate planning attorney, which is rare that many people have an attorney in their life that they can go to for that type of advice. But especially linking the tax advice with the investment advice that we give has been really the biggest game changer that we have as a company. And when we bring Pat or any of our CPAs or tax professionals into the conference room, that's what we're looking to do, is ask those appropriate questions. Here are the things that have cost other people in your similar situation potentially tens of thousands of dollars in their retirement in the past. What are you doing to address those issues? And if we get, like we've talked about in previous episodes, sort of those blank stares back, we're able to further that conversation to say, okay, here are some ideas, some strategies that have potentially worked for people in similar situations to you based on the lifestyle that you plan to lead. Have you discussed this with a financial advisor? Have you discussed any of these options with your tax advisor? And most of the time the answer is no, it's never been brought up.
So Pat, I as a financial advisor, I can't give tax advice. I'm not supposed to do that, okay?
Right.
Do you find that people that are coming from an advisory situation, that they are feeling left out in the cold when it comes to their tax questions being answered?
Oh, all the time, because their broker He's in there for the investments, okay? He's going to try to make as most money as he can, all right? But he's not thinking about the taxability of those investments. And a lot of people don't have a tax advisor. They have a tax preparer, but they don't have a tax advisor. And almost every meeting I talk to people, when we bring up the IRMA and the cost of their Medicare, they say, "What is IRMA?" And because their tax preparer doesn't know about it because it's not on a 1040. So they don't have to know about it. But if you're looking at your full financial picture, you better be aware of it. And so a full team with the financial person and the Medicare and the estate planning, it brings everything together for them and they get the biggest bang for their buck.
So Jonathan, what was the ultimate outcome for Jim and Jane?
Well, once we got their plan in place, I mean, the struggle for their part was this relationship that they'd had with the advisor that they had a bit of an emotional connection to because he had worked with the dad prior to his passing as well. And letting go of that relationship was the biggest struggle. So we talked through that. We looked at the financial benefits. They recognized that there were some glaring opportunities here to take advantage of, both in investment advisory fee savings, tax savings, having an appropriate and solid Medicare plan to go to, as well as the estate plan to fill in those existing gaps that they didn't even know existed prior to working with us. And having the Medicare plan, having the tax plan, having the cost to your retirement laid out in front of you, including what are the costs to your beneficiaries going to be, they knew what the next 15 to 20 years of their life was going to look like. And being able to deliver that plan to them gave them the peace of mind for Jim to be able to say, okay, yeah, this 6 months to a year time frame that I've had in mind for retirement, finally these questions are answered to where I can say, yes, we have enough money. My Social Security is going to be enough. I'm not going to be paying so much in taxes that I'm unable to retire. Answering those questions was the key to Jim being able to pull the trigger and say, yeah, now I have a retirement date.
Do you have a whole team looking out for your best interest? And if not, why not? At Market Advisory Group, we practice that holistic approach to retirement planning, covering all aspects of retirement. If you'd like to set up a complimentary, no-obligation consultation, operators are standing by right now to take your call at 316-252-8707. And be sure and check out our website at ionretirement.com. That's all the time we have for this week. I'm Rick Everett, along with the entire team, reminding you that we're here to keep an eye on retirement.
Investment advisory services are offered through Foundations Investment Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The content provided is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific investment opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns are not indicative of future results. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in the states where it is registered or excluded or exempt from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by security regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. No legal or tax advice is provided. Always consult with a tax professional. Legal services are offered by Edelman Law Firm. Tax services offered by Market Tax Service. Any comments regarding safe and secure investments and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not in any way refer to investment advisory products. Rates and guarantees provided by insurance products and annuities are subject to the financial strength of the issuing insurance company, not guaranteed by any bank or the FDIC. All rights reserved.